you hear it's cliche, like, oh,
Right.
make today the most important day, like tomorrow's not guaranteed. You're
Yeah.
like, all right,
Yeah.
like we'll see. Like, yeah, like we understand it. And then like until it happens and you're like, oh my gosh, you look back and it's like he told us that on Saturday, Sunday, literally never got to talk to him.
In this never-ending game of life, victories and defeats define our existence in a cycle of ups and of downs. Brace yourself for a journey beyond the ordinary as we dive into the heart of humanity. I am Jenna Galloway, your host and fellow collegiate athlete. Join me on the relentless pursuit of unraveling the untold stories of athletes, exploring the depths of their triumphs, and discovering where they channel the glory that transcends both the game they play and the very essence of life itself. Welcome to the Glory Beyond the Game podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to the Glory Beyond the Game. Today, I'm here with
Michael Ryhlick.
And we're going to hear a little bit about Michael's story and his whole career as a pitcher on the USC baseball team. He's a senior, and he's had a crazy journey from the beginning of his journey to now his last year playing baseball. So I'm really excited to dive into it today and just hear how God has worked in his life and trusting the process even when it doesn't even make sense. So really excited to hear his story, and hope you guys are too. So Michael, why don't you start with us, where you grew up, kind of, how your career started off, and, where you started.
I mean, I grew up Orange County, which is right near, basically neighbors without knowing that.
Super crazy.
I played baseball my whole life from T-ball all the way through. I was a kid. I was like, oh, I want to play in the major leagues, be a big leaguer, because that's everybody's dream. My dad played baseball, brother, everybody played. So I was like, I played throughout high school, just loving baseball and to play as long as I could. So, that's the sum of the younger generation of baseball for me.
Yeah. And then, so you graduated high school, and then you decided to take the junior college route?
Yes. So out of high school.
What did that look like?
Out of high school, obviously, people have signing days. They want to go to these big schools, want to do that. And, I just wasn't good enough at that time, which is a hard thing to come to, because you're you work so hard. You're like, I want to go to this big school. And I was like, if I try to go here, probably won't make it, all of this. So I was like, I'm going to go to the junior college route and kind of just work, but basically bet on yourself.
Right.
It's kind of my mentality for a while. I was just I'm going to go here, prove myself, and then have options later down the road. So definitely decided to go to Orange Coast College. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. And so you went there for 2 years, was it?
Yes, technically 3 because of the whole mess.
Dang,
everything
okay.
That we'll get into. So
right.
Technically it's 2.5, 3. It's a mess.
Okay, so speaking of the mess, so you started out there, and this is pre-COVID, so
yes.
Nothing was a little crazy.
Oh yeah, so went there out of high school, which was my freshman year, totally normal year. Freshman year of college, played baseball. We actually won a state championship, which is cool. So I was like, oh my gosh, got to play a ton.
Amazing.
Was loving life. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool to pitch a ton, have a championship, and then to come back to sophomore year, I was like, we're going to do it again, was my mindset, obviously, because your sophomore year is a big, junior college, I'll get your degree and, transfer out. So it was, the big year, which happened to be 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then, so you had championship first year, second year, coming back with that energy, and then, going into season, what happened?
Crazy.
A lot.
But, I don't even know how to even start that. But, going to the second year, we're like, we just won state, just won everything, coming in, I was our best pitcher at the time, so I'm like, this is my year to make the leap to go wherever I want. Hopefully at that time I was like, I want to get drafted. I was like, maybe I could skip a 4-year.
Wow.
And then start the year, it's it was just 2 days before season, and literally it was our season started Tuesday, this was Sunday, and our coach, or we get a call, news, everything, because my coach, we found out he passed away on the helicopter with Kobe. So that was obviously national news. Everybody's like, rip Kobe Bryant, rip this. And we're like, oh my gosh, our coach was bragging to us about how he was going on the helicopter, going to do all this.
Days before.
Literally the day before. I was like, I'm going to go on this with my daughter. His daughter played basketball with Gigi. So that was the connection he had with Kobe. I met Kobe. He would come to text us, come to our game. So it was crazy being, I don't know. I kind of didn't really understand adversity at all. Kind of grew up very fortunate, I would say.
Yeah.
Going freshman year of college, this is easy. What is adversity? You see people talk about it. Didn't know what any of that was until obviously get hit with the the most impossible thing to get hit with is like a death, national news, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do we do?
Right. Okay. Wow. So that's a lot right there. It's like, you know, we all know that Kobe died, but, you know, not necessarily who else was on the plane, and even further than that, someone that was so close to you, you know. After that experience, obviously, you had to play a game right away, you know. So how was that, you know, that week literally going into a game and having to play for him, and all of your teammates also that just got hit with this news and had to play through it and even play for your coach? Like, how was that experience?
It was really hard, to say the least, because my coach, once my coach passed away, our new coach, or like was our assistant, like kind of like stepped up, and like all of them were just like, they had no words to describe anything. They were so like down bad, couldn't even like function. So like they called me when he told me, and like getting a phone call, he's like, oh, like, hey Mike, like they're all gone, because like his wife was on the plane or the helicopter, and his daughter, so it was like a whole family, and he was like, yeah, they're all gone, like you need to tell the team I can't do it. So I'm like sitting here on the phone like Sunday like morning, like I have to go tell 30 guys on my team that our coach is gone and we have a game in 2 days, and yeah.
It's a lot of
so
pressure.
It's a lot, and going into the first game, it was crazy. Didn't know what to feel, because the day, like Sunday, we all met at the field. Like we all just went there to like just be with each other, just kind of hung out, and like it kind of, so many people came there, like news, media, everything. And then Monday was the same. Like there was memorials set up on the field already, like stuff, and like didn't even like do any sort of baseball activity or anything. And people were like, oh, do we play? Do we not? Because we had like genuine thoughts of like, maybe we just can't play. It's a lot. Our coaches were no input. Like everything was like, what do we do? And like we talked, and we're like, let's play. So we're like, all right, well, we're going to decide to play the game. So once we decided to play the game, it was the news, the media. I'm getting cameras thrown at me because like, oh, the pitcher tomorrow. What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this? And I'm just like, a month ago, I was like a just 19-year-old kid, just like, oh man, college is cool. Freshman year, like I'm a sophomore. Like, what is this? And now I'm looking on TV and I'm on like the news, like, and I'm like, what is going on? Talking like, oh yeah, like baseball pitcher. I'm like, what is this? Like, it's a junior college. I'm not like any like big time dude yet or anything.
Yeah,
so
literally.
That was a crazy thoughts with all the news, the media, and then like, all right, we have a game tomorrow, and I was like, here we go.
Wow. So. Wow. Well, that's a lot. And you know, thinking about your coach, who wasn't just a coach, who wasn't just, you know, somebody in your life, but someone who had a really big impact on you. How do you think that, you know, what was his impact on you? I know he mentioned a famous quote that you really stuck with you, but kind of, you know, what impact did he have on you personally, and also like on your teammates?
I'd say, I mean, his name's John Altobelli. Might as well say his name. Yeah. Everybody called him Alto, so that's kind of what I'll be
Coach Alto.
referring to him. But there's like not really any way to describe him. It's kind of like, you got the whole terminology of like GOAT. I mean, you obviously know that.
Yeah.
As like a sport, so he's kind of like the GOAT of junior college coaching. All these winners. He's in the Hall of Fame, like rightfully so. But he was kind of the guy, like the reason why I think he was so successful for all these years, and why everybody was like, oh, we love him, like go play for him. Is like he was kind of like a second father to everybody. Because like junior college, you get kind of a mix of people that are like that go have a rough path, or like just aren't quite good enough. So it's like kind of everything. So he's kind of like basically was a second dad. And like after being in college for, I don't know, years after that, with playing for many different coaches, is like there was no coach that was like just like him, basically. I feel like I spent the rest of my college like, oh, I'd love for a coach to be like him, but like you realize there's only one, Alto, and it was like the father figure, and like how much he cared about us, and like it was basically like ride or die. Like he would do anything for any of us on like any given day, whether it was off the field issues, on the field, anything. He was like just there for you. So it was like that was like the impact he had. Like he was basically like Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, like father, because like that's where OCC was. Like everybody's like, oh, it's Alto, like he's the GOAT. Like it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, coaches like that you never forget in your life. Speaking of your junior college coach's impact on you, and kind of you did mention a quote he had that really stuck with you. So what was that quote?
Oh, it was make today the most important day, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. So he kind of would tell us right before we'd stretch, like we'd go meet as a team. He'd be like, all right, make today a great day. And then we'd all clap, go on like our jog and start warming up. So like he'd tell us like, and that's literally, he told us on the last day. And like you hear it's cliche, like, oh, make today the most important day, like tomorrow's not guaranteed. You're like, all right, like we'll see. Like, yeah, like we understand it. And then like until it happens and you're like, oh my gosh, you look back and it's like he told us that on Saturday, Sunday, literally never got to talk to him
Wow.
ever. So like, that's kind of like the impact of that quote I have on him. Painting in my room, just right there on my wall, right above my bed. So I've had that ever since, pretty much.
A cliche that turned into reality.
Yeah.
So moving forward, so after, the whole news and your coach just passed away, what was, the next step in your career after that?
I mean, it was obviously like, we have our game. So we start our game. We're like,
Right.
all right, no one knew what crowd we would get. No one knew anything. We're like, we'll see. Like
Let's do
it's 2020, so it wasn't quite COVID yet, but we'll get to that. But we just start our game, like, I don't know, just like a normal game, try to treat it like have my headphones on, like trying to get like focused because like I got to go pitch in a game. Like,
Right.
can't just sit there and be like, oh, like this. So I'm like just listening to music, and I'm just one was watching the stadium. It's not barely a stadium, like junior college stadium's like a couple bleachers.
Right.
But like it was like getting packed and more packed. I'm like, how many people are here? I see fire trucks pull up with like huge flags, like American flags.
Dang.
Like people are packing everything like down the lines, the parking lot, everything. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't know. There's no words to really describe like what I felt. I didn't really feel like a game. Kind of just felt like, what the heck do I do? I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to go pitch and see what happens. So
how many people ended up coming?
I don't know. There is, no one got like an official count, but they're estimated like right around like 5,000 people.
5,000.
A stadium that probably holds like a couple hundred.
Dang.
And it was crazy. I'll never forget this. It was after like the first inning I pitched. It was actually like going back to like the first batter I faced. I remember pitching, and I was like, whatever, starting the game, and I was like looking around like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people here.
Right.
And I was like, oh, like it was actually like the coolest moment of that whole game to me. It was like I struck out the first batter of the game.
Dang.
And I heard everybody like cheer. It was almost like a sigh of relief, which is like a cool like experience. I mean, you can't see, like, get the chills just talking about it. So I was like having that experience, like, oh my gosh, like everybody's like, okay, like take a deep breath, like that's kind of like what it felt like okay, we're good, like we're gonna work through this.
Looking back and like going home after that game, how did you feel? I mean, I know there's so much, you almost probably felt numb, but like, how did you feel going home, knowing everything that just happened, and but then being able to play that game and pitch and feel that sense of relief even mid game with so many people watching?
Yeah, I remember that game. We actually didn't even get to fully finish the game, which didn't make it good because of darkness. Because they had a huge ceremony before the game, so I got suspended due to darkness. So like, that wasn't very fun because obviously we wanted to win for him, but it was we didn't play very good, to say the least. So when we left, or I think when I came out of the game, I was like, man, I wanted to throw the whole game. Like we wanted to win. Like we all wanted to be perfect. Like we wanted to win for him. And I remember, I think the thing that changed for me, because I was like, oh, like we're all upset because what people don't talk about the most was Alto's, like when his family passed away, like he still had a daughter left, like that's still around, like when Newport Harbor, like super local kid, like she was at our games and she was just there. I remember like going through like, oh, this, and I remember her just staying there, and she's like gave me a hug after my outing, just standing there, like this was mid-game, like the game wasn't over yet, and just her just being like, just saying like thank you. And it was kind of like at that moment I was just like, all right, I was like, this game really doesn't matter. It's kind of like I should be focusing on, like, her name's Lexi. It's like, oh, like just give her a hug and just be like, there's no words to say to her. Like she's just like, thank you for like just being here. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? Wow. Yeah, she's kind of like our adoptive daughter for our team. She gained another 30-something brothers so that day. So
really quick. Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, so junior college, you have all that experience. You grew up really fast. You didn't even expect it, or no one expected to grow up that fast, but you really had to. So moving on, that's like the first big thing. So moving on, COVID hit. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, so it's like anything. You wanted to win for our coach. We started out super poor. Yeah. And then we slowly started playing better, and like right when we were about to figure it out, like it was weird. I still talk to all those guys all the time that on the team, and like we're like super tight because like it's almost like a trauma bond. You hear that thing? Yeah. Yes. And we all love each other. I mean, miss those guys. Wish I could hang out with them every day. But we came together. Like we started playing good baseball. Like, oh, we're gonna do this, and all of a sudden we hear this national pandemic shuts down the season. So we're like, what do you mean we can't? All we want to do is to win for our coach, and like we couldn't do that. So like that obviously shocked the whole world with the whole pandemic and going forward. So like once that was shut down, like your season's done. And we felt robbed of like we wanted to win for him. Like all those feelings, emotions, like we were working through was just shut down. So we couldn't do anything. Wow. So like that was kind of the biggest hit of like losing all our identities, everything. So like, oh, it's your sophomore year of junior college too. It's like you're supposed to transfer out, go to a school, like, and we're all just sitting there like COVID hit, our coach passed away, like what do we do?
Right. You can't prove yourself in the season. 'Cause you don't have it. It's gone away. So what did you do from there? Did you?
Well, at the time I was really heavily getting recruited to University of Houston, and I was like, remember that was the last day, or it was my last outing before the shutdown, like the COVID shutdown. The coach flew out and saw me throw. So it was the connection felt special too, because that's where Alto went. He went to University of Houston, and like he would always be like, hey, like he's gonna come watch you pitch. Yeah. And like week 3 or whatever it was, because obviously we didn't play much of season. So it's kind of like I was talking to them heavily, and I was like, shoot, what do I do? Because like our coaches were like, at the time I was like, oh, like I could have went on from there, because like I already pitched enough and like I was good enough to go. And I was like, do I go? Do I stay? Because COVID was weird with eligibility, people coming back. And then I ultimately decided to stay back at OCC again, because we're like, oh, we want to win for our coach. Let's see what happens. Yeah. And we didn't have a whole fall or spring. Like it was actually over a year before we could like even hang out or play as a team again. Yeah. So that's why I said it's like 6 years of college, but kind of like 5.5 kind of. 5.5. Okay. So yeah, we just basically spent another year there so we could win for him, and like our shortened season we played that year. And then I was just the coaches and stuff were close with Alto at the time, so they're like, oh yeah, just honor it, come back to Houston the following year. So I was like, okay. So it wasn't a big deal. So
then you made the trip over there, and you said you had one teammate come with you.
Yeah, right? I was supposed to, and he didn't make it all the way out there with me, unfortunately. So
right, so that was like one of the first things. And then, so you got out there, you didn't have your teammate, but you followed one of the coaches that recruited you, right?
Yeah, one of the coaches that recruited me is like, I mean, we're all athletes, like you have like ride or die coach, that coach, you're like, oh, like this is my guy, like he's your buddy, like, well, like it wasn't like nowhere near the same as Alto, but I was like the coach, like you look at him, like he's like gonna take care of you. Yeah. So like that's kind of like what I had with this coach. I was like, oh, cool.
Right. In a time of like COVID uncertainty, you kind of followed the coach, your gut feeling, saying, okay, like I'm gonna make this transition and just see what happens. Yeah. Right. But once you got out there, so how was the transition? Obviously from California to Texas, that's a big move, and that's not, California and Texas are completely different states, completely different cultures. So kind of explain to us, walk us through, like, what was the transition?
I mean, it was kind of like a leap of faith. Yeah. I said like I had as my wallpaper forever. It was obviously faithful person. It was like kind of like God's plan was like my mindset, because I was like, how else can I explain this? Yeah. Everything that's happened to me with just the 2020 year with coaches passing, I was like, oh, like, want to just figure out what to go, like what to do with stuff. So I kind of go out there. I'm a California guy in Texas, didn't know anybody, didn't even know what to do. I just kind of moved into my apartment. And
no recruiting visits, no trips.
No, nothing. So it was all COVID. So I was like, I'm going to go out here. Like I knew my one coach. That was it. It's like, that was it. Kind of like got acclimated as best I could. And then just was like, oh, let's see what Texas is.
Yeah. And so once you got there, what was the team culture like? Compared to your OCC, obviously trauma bonded. These are your brothers for life. You went through so much with them, and now it's like completely again.
It was kind of like I walked in there, I almost felt like judged right away, which kind of sucked, because it's like your junior college guys kind of come in when they get recruited to like either fill a spot or take somebody's spot, because like while they like, try to develop freshmen or whatnot. Yeah. So I kind of come in there and like, who's this California guy with all this rah around him because of all the news stuff, all the COVID stuff, and I'm just a normal dude going in there. Like I didn't ask to be on the news or have all this publicity stuff. Dang. So I was like, I kind of went in there like almost got treated poorly, which kind of sucked, because I was like, I like to think I'm a nice guy, but get treated. It just, I don't know. Best way to describe that, it just wasn't my place. Like to be there as a California guy stuck in Texas.
So after all of what you've experienced, and then you had, you had 1 year there, right?
Yeah, just 1 year.
Yeah, and then so you went through there, and it wasn't the best. So at the end of the season, you went in the transfer portal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you got recruited here to USC. Is that correct? Yeah. So kind of how was that? You're running out of years here. You're finally in transfer portal, and you get recruited you're coming back home. So kind of how is that? How did you feel after, everything you've experienced at this point in your life, and, you're coming back home to USC, like kind of explain that transition of, okay, I'm going to start again after starting again so many times.
The best way to describe coming here is like, all right, like see what's going to happen. Is like basically when you transfer school, it's kind of like a new life. Yeah. So I came here, gave up a lot of stuff when obviously transferring schools isn't fun right away. It's really scary. Yeah. So I transferred out here. I was like, all right, let's see what SEM home, like worst case scenario, it's like obviously it's great school, great degree, and I was like, my friends are close, family's close, so they can all watch me play, grandparents. So I was like, it's gonna be good. And like my ultimate goal is like, all right, want to play baseball, want to basically keep carrying on my coach's legacy. Like I have his initials and number on the back of my glove.
Nice.
So I have like the J14 on there. So I was like, I want to like honor that.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, like play for him, all of that. And, like that's all I basically wanted to do. But transferring here was like, it was weird. The best way to describe it was like, there was 5 of us were transfers, or there was more than that, but got a random text, moved into a house together, and like
Wow.
the first day
That's fun.
2 of them were brothers, but the first day
Yeah.
like no one knew each other. We're just all from California. It was like
Right.
we're like all best friends from day one. So a completely different
So
experience. It was
fun.
kind of like, okay, so in my mind I'm like, this is good. Like this is a good spot.
This is where I need to
I'm like, this is
be.
right where I need to be. Like everybody's awesome. Everything's great. I'm like,
Actually feels like home.
Finally getting catching a break from all like the unfortunate stuff I went through.
Right. And then, so you kind of got here. You're getting adjusted pretty easily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right away. And this is your junior year. I mean, this is
like,
year 4.
This is technically
5.
year 5, but it's
5.
like year 3. Eligibility is so weird. Year 3, 4, I really don't know.
Okay. Okay, so you're coming in. This is last fall,
Mm-hmm.
coming into USC, finally home, finally feeling good with everyone. And once you got into fall training, what kind of happens? I know you had something happen, so you weren't able to play, and had to sit out. So kind of how was that experience?
Yeah, so I mean, going into a season like training the whole fall, going into the spring, like you're like, oh, like gonna play a ton this year, all this stuff.
Finally,
like you're finally like
with
so
the teammates
excited.
I like,
yeah,
and everything's good.
Teammates I love, teammates there. So I was like finally catching a break, and then like finding out like with just I don't know like good way to describe it, but like just I was like wasn't able to play, so I was like, oh, I was like felt almost like holy crap, I have to just sit the whole year, and it's
The whole year.
nothing I can do.
Right.
And I don't know, as an athlete to like other athletes, like I don't wish that upon anybody, because that's like horrible going like to every practice, every game, and just knowing like you can't do anything like to help the team win, or just deal with those emotions of like you work so hard and then like get it taken away from you.
How did you experience your faith during that time in your life? In fall training, you find out you can't play for the year, and now you're like, gosh, what do I do? Kind of how did you experience that with your prayer life, with leaning on God, and also being so upset, being like, why do these things keep happening?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say I obviously grew up in the church, very religious. Dad taught at my church for years, so I was like, I've always been super faithful, and like I will say, like when I was like, when I wasn't able to play or anything, like I really didn't turn to faith right away, which sucked. So I definitely turned to not the greatest thing. So that kind of like being in a really dark place was like, what do I do? And I was like trying to figure it out. Like I was like, I've went through so much. I was almost like kind of like falling apart. Yeah. Which is not a fun feeling to have. I was kind of like, what the heck do I do? So, I mean, I've been going to a Bible study here with some guys on our team since the fall, and like just sharing everything. Like my whole story, everything going on. So like throughout the whole thing, and it was kind of like having that week to week was kind of like just talking with him, praying a ton. It was just like, I don't know, the thing that kept me going was like, oh, it's God's plan. Like something will come out of this. Like I got to keep praying. Just trying to stay positive, and like even I don't know how I was able to stay so like positive and well put together with everything I've been through, because just describing it all, people are like, oh my gosh. I'm just like, oh, it's just my life. Like I feel okay, which is
it's the
sad
normal
to think. Yeah, which is crazy to me. But there's no like thing. I don't know. I prayed all the time, went to church, did everything, and just I was like, I don't know, getting deep into it was like the cry of like mercy times, which is like deep prayers where I was like, not like I'm yelling at him, but I'm just like, I need like help,
something,
like those like surrender prayers of just being like, I need more than just this. Like I really was like at that point where I needed to like just basically is like him take over everything all over again, just being like, help me please. Throughout
the summer, coming back into fall, which was this past fall, how did your mentality change from the summer, going into fall, saying, okay, now I got another shot, really excited to play? How was kind of your mental game going into fall?
I think it was kind of like right when season was over, it was kind of almost like a reset where I was like, from last season being like, missing the whole thing, and then being like, I was like finally healthy, finally fully like full tilt, like ready to go for the fall. I was super excited. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like my final year. Like there's no BS, there's no like injuries, there's no anything. Like this is just it. Like all I got to do is play baseball for one last year, and
Right.
see what happens. Like
Yeah.
family, everybody. I was like, there's nothing. So I was super excited, just coming back in, seeing all my friends, having a great time, basically. The whole fall.
That's amazing. Finally got your home and everything's good. And then one of the last parts of your story, leading to present day, so you're about to play, getting ready, fall training, and then in November you said your coaches called you up, right?
Yeah, so
for
we have
meeting.
like exit meetings at the end of the fall and stuff. So I was like, that's kind of at least how baseball works. You have like exit meetings like the fall and then the end of the year. It's kind of like our 2 meetings
before going into break in winter, and kind of just gathering up. And so what did the coaches tell you in that meeting?
It was a really weird meeting because obviously I've had a weird situation from the year before, missing the whole year, and then it was kind of like they're new coaches because they were new with me, so like they're trying to figure out all these rules, everything, and then they're basically like, look, like we don't really know what to do. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I pitched great this fall. Like, I had a great fall. I was like, what do you mean?
What news are you talking about?
I was like, what's up? Like, my coaches are buddies with me. Like, my one pitching coach she just sat there during the whole meeting, like, didn't say anything. And I was like, is this gonna be bad news? I was like, oh my gosh.
Not
so I was like, starting to freak out a little bit. And he's like, he's like, we like screwed up. Like, there's certain rules. We can't like do stuff with like there was basically, I'm not going to like logistics in case like, I don't know. Say anything that I can't say, but going to logistics, they're like, oh, like we like you can't be around anymore. Like not like can't be around, like there's like no spot for me anymore. That's a better way to describe it. They're like, we're sorry, like we want you, you're gonna pitch this year, but we can't.
It's not like you're bad.
We can't have you. And I'm just like,
what?
It felt like those relationships things where it's like, it's not you, it's me. And I'm like, what? Like that's what they're saying to me. Like we're sorry, like you're good enough, we want you to play, but we can't. And I'm just like, what do you mean? What did I do? I was like, I did nothing wrong. They're like, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, we're sorry. Like,
it's not you, it's
we
me.
feel bad. Like, they're emotional in there. Like, they're giving me hugs, all this stuff. And I'm just like, am I done? Like, just like that. I was like, what?
Wow.
So it was weird hearing that news where I was like, I guess I'm done. I'm not playing anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Going through, literally, again, everything you've been through, going from junior college to your head coach to COVID to Houston being not where you want to be, to not being able to play, finally coming last fall, and you're kicked off the team. That's just a crazy emotional roller coaster. And heading into this Christmas break, this winter break, this past, kind of, where was your headspace? I know the year before, not being able to play, you didn't fall into the greatest things, and you kind of were struggling there. But kind of how is this time? How's this approach of, again, telling you can't be able to play, your season's over? How did you enter into winter break?
So, like, obviously went into winter break at, like, a low. I think I, like, got rid of any sort of, like, baseball thing I could see on, like, social media.
Literally a breakup.
Anything. It was basically a breakup. Like, me and baseball were, like, done.
Unfollow
and I'm just,
everything.
like, unfollowed everything, got rid of everything.
Block them.
Literally, that's like,
funny.
what it was. So it was weird, like, addressing, like, the team and, like, hey, like, love you guys, like, can't be around. And they're all confused. Everybody's like, what? And I was just like, I can't even talk about it. So it was the thing that kind of like made me feel a little bit better is that a lot of like other guys, because I don't know, I've been around a long time. I'm kind of like a grandpa of the team.
Yeah.
Best way to describe it. So I had a lot of like freshmen and stuff wanting to like reach out to me, like, hey man, like thanks for helping me out. And like I didn't even really know I was helping them out that much. Like I would just invite him to things, be like, hey, like, or I'm like, hey, like do this. Like I learned this in college, like do this. So they'd come to me like for questions, any information on stuff. So I was making sure that was like really important to him.
Yeah.
So like for me, I was like, oh, I'm gonna give back. I went through a lot. I was like, how can I help these guys out?
Right.
So I was like doing that the whole time, and like even over Christmas break for a little bit, like guys would reach out with questions and help, and like I'm still helping them, and like, it kills me. Like, I'm helping you with baseball stuff, but I'm not out there able to do anything.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like going into Christmas break. I was like, what do I do? Like I was kind of like, well, I'm kind of retired. I'm a super senior and I have no school left, so I was like, I don't really know what to do. I just was like, I don't know, went to the gym a lot, golfed, and then met up with Miguel because I was super afraid of like going down that dark path. Yeah. Again, so I was like, what do I do? And I was like, because this is arguably the worst news I've ever heard.
Right, in your life.
My whole thing. So I was like, something you work your whole life for is like over, and like not by your choice too. Yeah. So kind of go into that and hearing.
And Miguel leads the baseball Bible study.
Yeah, Miguel leads the baseball Bible study. I was like, he lives down in Costa Mesa. So I went up, got tacos with him, just staying. He's like, what do you like do? Like, what's your impact, purpose? And I was like, I was telling him like, I'm afraid of like going down the dark path like I did before.
Right, the year before.
And the year before with all the stuff. So I was like, what do I do? And I really was just like, he took me to I forgot is it Adoration?
Yes.
Yeah, Adoration.
Yeah.
So
At the church, right?
Yeah, he took me there, and I was just sit there, and I was just basically went in there and just sat there and like just prayed a ton. It was really weird. I guess not weird, but I turned from praying, or instead of like going down the dark paths, like I was like, instead of like even like going to like party, like, or drinking or hanging out with a bunch of girls, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna turn everything to God and just see what happens. So I kind of just turned to him, and everybody's like, my parents, friends were like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing okay, which was weird. It was a weird feeling to be like, I'm okay.
Right.
Like I feel good. Not good, like I was still sad, but I was like, no bad thoughts, no negativity. And I was like, man, I wish I'd turned to this last year. I was like, it would have made, since it took me 6 months to do something I was able to do in a month.
It's
so
amazing.
it was kind of like super weird, like turned to him, and it was like, it was still, I knew it'd still be hard, like going forward, especially coming back to the house with all the baseball guys. I was like, I had no idea what any of that would have been like. So I was like, what do I do? Anything. I was like, oh, I guess I'll figure that out when it happens. So I was like, didn't really do much, just kept praying, wanted to get more involved in the church, figuring out what's next with that. So I was like, that was super, like, I don't know, loving feeling.
Yeah, especially after, you know, anyone who's on the outside looking into your life and everything you've been through, they'd be like, they would not expect you to rebound so quickly in a month compared to, you know, 6 months, which is something the Lord is so capable of doing. He can do the impossible, but it's a matter of, you know, us and trusting and letting go, you know, and surrendering. And so during this process, you obviously had a really good mental state. You finally, you know, like recharged and everything. And then, you know, beginning of this January, you get a call from your coach, right?
Yes.
So tell us what the phone call was.
So it was kind of like, it was weird. It was Sunday night. School starts Monday, and I was just like, I don't know. Haven't picked up a baseball or anything since.
Leaving it behind,
leaving it in like mid-November. I was like, all right, like.
Throwing it in the closet, like.
Yeah, literally, I had nothing. I didn't even know where my glove was, anything. I put it all away, like.
Literally don't even know.
I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I was, get a text from him, and he's like, hey, like, Happy New Year. Give me a call when you get a chance. I was like, what? Like, what does he want to talk about?
Right.
I was like, did I do something or something?
Like
I
now
my
again?
mind, I'm like, crap. I was like, I don't need any more emotions. And it was Sunday dinner. I was eating dinner. And my parents were there. I was like, all right, go upstairs. He had called me. Like, hey, he's like, we found out, like, we want you. Like, we want you back. Like, we have a spot. You're good. And I'm like, what? So I'm like sitting there on the phone. He's like, is that something you want to do? Like, you want to come pitch for us this year? And like, come to. I was like, yeah. I was like, what? It was the most like weirdest feeling ever, because it was like, they tell me they want me but can't have me, and now they're like, oh wait, we figured out we can have you now. Like, come back. Yeah. So I was like, oh, what? Okay.
How do I respond to this?
Yeah. So
my answer is yes, but like, how? Like, what do you mean?
So I was kind of like, he's like, come back, and then I was like, all right, like I don't know what to do. So I packed up my car, just drove back up here from Orange County. I was like, I guess I got school practice and stuff tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
It was actually funny. Is that right when I heard that phone call, I set up like a net and like a generator lights outside and just threw into a net. I was like, I might as well throw.
Oh my gosh, right away.
Getting back into it, because I was like, crap, I haven't thrown in
you have to
2 months.
Yeah.
So.
Which, for, you know, people who don't know, not pitching for, how long was it?
Probably 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Not even throwing
Anything. It was crazy to come right back into it. And you had, practice literally that next day or that week, right? It
was literally the next day I played catch again. So it was kind of, baseball is like the general rules, like for how much time you take off, you spend building back up plus more. So it was, when I met with like our trainer here, and I was coming back, I was like, it's a weird, the most bizarre situation ever. I was like, I've seen it all in college, the best way to describe it. But he's like, hey, like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to be ready as quick as possible, because now it's like, all right, now I'm back, and it's not necessarily more of like, oh, hey, like, welcome back. It's more of like, shoot, like,
season's right here.
Like, season's here. Like, I want to play. Like, I don't want to sit there and just do nothing all year, because like, no, athletes want to play. So I was like, all right, I got to get ready. And I was like, everybody's, I don't know, 6 weeks ahead of me.
Right.
Everybody knowing how to take time off or go through what I went through. I mean, like, nothing I could have done about that. So I was like, what do I do now going forward and get ready for season?
There's a lot right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was my trainer was like, oh, I want you back, like, Texas series. So when we go to Texas, which was like week 3 of season, and I'm like, I want to be ready for week 1 if I can.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's missing games.
Yeah.
So going through like throwing progression and everything, I share this a ton at Bible study. They're like, oh, like, how's your arm feel? Because pitchers, like, arm injuries and stuff is really common.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, what do you want to deal with? Like, how fast you can come back? Like a fast acceleration is like the fastest way to basically hurt yourself. And missed the whole year. And after missing a whole year the year before, I was like, the last thing I want to do is go really quick. But I was like, screw it, I don't know what to do. So that whole process,
out of time here, seriously.
talking to like in Bible study, I was like, it was the weirdest feeling. I kind of just felt like, I was like, I would go throw like pitch this day when I'm coming back, and I was like, the best way to describe it is I obviously didn't see God or anything, but it felt it felt like he got me. Like that was the best way to describe it. Like anything I was doing, was like, God's got me. Like that was the feeling I had. It was like he was like just next to me through everything, and it was the coolest feeling ever. I wish he was still just following me around, because I felt invincible during that ramp up period when I really needed him, like to help me get there. Like it was literally, it was crazy. Like I would go lift, and be like, wake up the next day and be like, I felt like nothing even happened, and I could go do it again. It was so crazy.
Insane. The whole story is insane, especially coming completely, this past winter break, leaving your sport behind after last year's season, turning to all these other things, and it took you so long, and you were in such a rut, and then finally being, all right, second time's around, I'm not trying this again. This is not gonna happen the same way, and kind of giving it up to God. So how would you say your mentality changed in your attitude towards surrendering stuff to God, especially in baseball, but also in outside of life?
I'd say, I go back to just everything I've been in college was just, my mindset has changed so much over the years. Because it was back when I was freshman, sophomore, junior, like twice, or senior, whatever it is. Just going back to all of it, just my mindset has changed, is that it's, at the end of the day, it's like a game, and there's like bigger things in baseball. Was kind of what I realized, whether it's I spent a lot of time, especially last season, just looking around, because like I wasn't playing, so I was like, look in the stands, basically just wander, look around, like see what's up, and like seeing a lot of like families come watch their kids and like all this stuff, and I'm just like seeing how excited they were, and like even if their son did bad, and I'm like, none of, like, as athletes, it's like we think like everything's so centerized like around our sport, and if we do good, like, everybody will love us if we do good, but then like rather it's like I joke around with the guys on the team, like, like if you pitch bad or if you don't get hits, like we're still gonna hang out, like it doesn't matter. It's like my parents, it was having them come to my games and just seeing there, like they're just stoked to hang out with me and watching me play baseball through the craziness. So it's like through everything I went through, like mindset wise, was like the whole, like even just to go back to seasons, like ramping up all this stuff was like, I don't know, there's no word to describe it, just as crazy. I said you could make a movie about my life if I was ever famous.
Right.
But
seriously.
Pitching, it was like the first game of the year comes around, and we're out in Arizona. There's pitching in that first game was crazy. It was like
this year?
Yeah, this year. It was like a month ago. Like I wasn't even on the team, and now I'm pitching in the first game of the year. So it was kind of like, holy crap, what is life? Guys are out there like, oh my gosh, like if I don't do this, this is gonna happen, and I'm like, I just threw in a game and I shouldn't even be here. Basically, is what it felt like.
Yeah.
So my mentality kind of changed, of like there's things that are bigger than baseball versus so focused on like my sport.
Yeah. Would you say that coming into fall this past fall, would you say that your mentality was not the same as it is now in terms of life? There's so much more to life than just baseball, than just your sport.
I'd say this fall was definitely, I came wanting to like prove a lot, because I was like, I missed the whole year. Like you want to come and like prove yourself. So I was so focused, like every day I was like, I got to do this perfectly. Like I have to eat this perfectly, stretch here, and like if I like missed one day on something, I would like freak out about it. So I was very like
go to bed
uptight
on time
about it, and I was like, uptight, like locked in. We got to make sure I'm doing everything all perfect.
Right.
Otherwise, like if I one day, like if I went out with my friends, I'd be like, I went out, like I got to work twice as hard. Versus coming back in the spring and just being like, I'm just gonna go out and just see what happens. And leading up, like I pitched way better in the spring with a different mindset than I did in the fall, like so like amped up all the time. So it was really weird having like the mindset change of just like relaxing and kind of just like letting go. The best way to describe it.
Do you feel like that had a lot to do with your faith?
Oh yeah, I remember talking to Miguel Bible study wise. Like I was in the car one day. I remember driving, just being like, I need a miracle, because I was literally like, I don't know what to do with my life. Right. I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. Like I've been through all this just for my sport to be like, really? Like I play this game my whole life and it ends like this. Right. So the best way for me to describe like the situation was like I have this surrender prayers like in the car. I'm like yelling at this point. I feel bad. Like I know he forgives me, but like said some mean things at some point, but
that's where you were at. I mean,
I know that's where I was, and
yeah.
it basically felt like he took like my baseball career, all like the bad thoughts, bad emotions, everything, like kind of like jumbled it up and like fixed all like the impurities and just gave it back to me. And was like, here, like I'm gonna go fix your mindset, your thoughts, your everything. Like you gave everything to me. Like here's this, like back on like a silver platter, and I just took it. And I'm like, I'm back. Like this is crazy.
I have nothing to say. Literally speechless.
That's what I described as like, I don't know. I mean, getting chills again. Just talk. Like that's literally how it describes. Like he just fixed everything, gave it back to me. I was like, here you go. Like you're not done. And I was like, all right.
Yeah. Going from completely losing everything in baseball to having everything back, pitching in the first game, and going through everything that you did, how has your perception and vision on believing in miracles and believing that God can make a way if you give it to him, how has your mentality in that kind of changed, you would say, in the past even 3 months?
The past few months obviously have been roller coaster still, because it's like coming back into it now, like life's normal.
Yeah.
It's what it seems like. It's almost like a new life, which is cool. It's a cool feeling, but also a weird feeling. But I'd say miracle-wise, just anytime I have any sort of like problems or issues with anything, it's like I have found myself just praying a lot more, walking into the church, like wanting to get more involved, because it kind of seems like a bigger impact like within myself. Yeah. Because like I shared really big into like God's plan and like what he wants me to do. And I'm sure as like faithful people as yourself, it's like, oh, like you obviously want to do what he wants us to do. Yeah. And I wish he just put on a piece of paper, it's like, you're going to do this. And you're like, thank you. Like now I know what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Right. So feeling like trying to figure out what is next was kind of like the feeling I have. Yeah. And then I know it has to do something involved with church and like giving back and like helping others with certain things. So I don't know what that looks like, but I'd say mentality wise was I never thought I would even be interested in doing something like that. To everything I've been in versus like the miracles, it's like it's true. It's real. Like it happened. Like I don't know the percentage of that, but there's
definitely really low. Yeah. Insanely low. Yeah, especially, realizing that because we can't know the next step, even though it'd be amazing if it was on a piece of paper and we carried it around on a wall. Oh, this is on the agenda. Sounds great. But realizing that because that's not reality and that much more we need to lean into God and his plan, because obviously he's going to make whatever we give him 50 times more, 50 times better, and our lives are just going to be, that much better. Throughout this whole experience, what would you say is one Bible verse that kept you going?
So I came across a Bible verse. This one, I can't even tell you the day it came across, but I think it came across on my phone probably 20 different times. And then I was like, all right, like this means something. And it was John 13:7. You may not know now, but later you'll understand. Yeah. So that kind of stuck with me because just reflecting on my whole journey is like, it kind of goes hand in hand with God's plan. I was like, why is all this stuff happening to me? Yeah. It's like, I don't know what I did wrong. Yeah. For consistently for everything to go wrong, everything is like, felt like, I was like, I just wanted to catch a break. So that verse kind of stuck with me and it still sticks with me today. So. Yeah,
really just surrendering and because God's, wisdom is so much greater than ours. There's nothing we can do. Just saying, okay, this is insane, but I'm going to keep going. I'm gonna, one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. Right. So, okay, last question for the episode. What would you say is a piece of advice you would give to either yourself starting at the beginning of your journey or just anyone?
One piece of advice. I would say that for no matter what you're going through, what has happened to you or what will happen to you is that life isn't fair and like that's okay. To like kind of accept like things happen and it's may not always be like fair, and that if you just stick to it, like kind of positive mindset, like really lean on God is what I would really encourage people to. And people who obviously aren't faithful, just like really trust in the process. Like if something bad happens, it's okay. It's not going to be fair, and that like things will eventually like be positive for you.
Just got to trust the process. Yeah. And that, life isn't fair. You're not going to always get what you want. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. You can check us out on Instagram to find us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts for more episodes, but we hope to see you next time. Thank you. Bye.